Don't settle for fakes. My duel Taining is the real deal.
Hey everyone, it's MacLord, and today I'm going to be talking about another banned card. So when I made the Trinade video explaining why Trinade absolutely cannot come back, some people actually watched the video. You know, it has a couple of views. And then some people just clicked on the video, wrote a very angry comment about why it was wrong without, you know, paying attention to the video. And then proceeded to have embarrassing meltdowns on Reddit, because that's what Redditors do. Now let's talk about this little piece of shit. So COCYTUS was the first towers, I think, that Duel Links ever got. A monster that can be targeted or destroyed by card effect. Which is, you know, huge pain. This card was really difficult for a lot of decks to deal with back in DSOD era. I think like the most basic game plan for decks like Blackwing or Shiranui to those cards was like just beat over it, which was sometimes made difficult by the fact that this deck could recycle Alistair for a power boost. And other decks like Dark Magician that absolutely could not beat over it, just had to play dumb shit like Herald of the Abyss, which oh boy. But now that the power level of the game has advanced so much that we have non-targeting, non-destruction removal available, is COCYTUS still too powerful for the game? No. Could COCYTUS come back? It could, but I don't think it should. There was this meme on Reddit, it was like, why COCYTUS banned but Chaos Max legal? It's a bad faith argument because, you know, one of them is a collectible card and the other one is like a card that generated out of thin air that's you're not going to see in half of your games because you're going to have to activate the white scale going first in half of your games. But still, let's take this idea that like there are cards like Leo Dancer, Chaos Max, even Saber Dancer to a certain extent, and all of these cards that basically do the same thing as COCYTUS, and COCYTUS, you know, is the one that's banned. And why is that? There's a very simple reason. Most of these cards take you more resources to summon than COCYTUS. You know, Chaos Max needs you to, well, to have the skill, for one, and go second and activate it. You know, it's the main deck monster, so you have to search it, you have to search the ritual spell associated with it, and then you have to use the ritual spell and a monster in order to be able to summon it from your hand. So that's like not something that you can do turn one, especially accounting for the skill. Leo Dancer is kind of the same way, you know? It's a fusion monster that requires 3+ materials. Not 3+, just 3 materials. One of which has to be exactly Panther Dancer, which means you're gonna have to find a way to cheat it out, most probably with COCYTUS, maybe with Lunalight Fusion, if you get lucky, but that's still like at least 4 cards worth of cards that you're going to have to spend to get that Leo Dancer. It's like you invested a bunch of resources to get a big boss monster. COCYTUS is like 2 cards, right? There's Alistair and the water monster, and Alistair such as the fusion spells, you don't even need to worry about that. So it's like very cheap to make compared to all of these other big indestructible boss monsters. I think a more appropriate comparison would be to a monster like DINGIRSU, right? Which does not have as much protection as COCYTUS has, but is still like a monster that you can bring out with pretty much any 2-card combo, one of which has to be an Orcust monster. DINGIRSU is the kind of card that like people wanted banned for a while, you know? People was like, DINGIRSU needs to be limited 3 or limited 1. Well, Redditors, but Redditors haven't had a single good take in a very long time. But still, it's very funny to see these Redditors be like, you know, COCYTUS could totally come back. We have DINGIRSU now. Like I said before, on the power level side, it's not anything to be worried about. You know, it's a 2900 defense monster, which a lot of decks can easily beat over. You know, Blue Eyes can just get over 4000 very easily. Lunalights can just punch through this thing as well, I'm pretty sure, with Saber Dancer, as they could back in the day, because Saber Dancer was also a card that existed during DSOD format. TENYI would have some trouble beating over this with the bonus Alistair in hand. So that's a negative. Life Twins would have to use exactly the Evil Twin main deck monster, boosted to 4400 attack, which is not the greatest card out there, but it is a searchable out. Rockets have access to a bunch of stuff. Gandora would need to be playing OG Gandora so that Giga Rays banishes cards from the field. I think it only... No, it does banish, even with only 2 names engraved, so you don't even need to be running OG Gandora. There's like a lot of decks that actually kind of struggle with beating over this. And in terms of like generic removal, some people pointed out that, you know, ITP can be used to banish COCYTUS. Okay. What's the dragon target in your opponent's graveyard for IGP, huh? Because I don't think it works the way you want it to work. The best out you can have to COCYTUS is graveyard manipulation. A while back, back when we had another discussion about whether COCYTUS could come back or not, I had a duel against a gentleman whose name I've forgotten, who dared me to play, you know, Invoked with COCYTUS, any variant that I wanted, and he'd bring a deck designed to counter it. So I played Elemental Saber Invoked, which terrible deck in Insight, you know, not too slow to properly function nowadays, even if COCYTUS came back. But that's the deck that I chose, and they chose to play Madolches, and Madolches is really good at removing material from the graveyard to prevent your opponent from going into not only COCYTUS but most invoked fusion monster. It's a good graveyard manipulation deck. We have a couple more of these available to us, you know, Infernoid. It's not really playable, but it kind of counts. And more specifically, we do have actual hand traps that work in a way to prevent COCYTUS from being summoned. Stuff like Lancia and DD do a really good job at preventing this thing, or any invoked fusion, from eating the field. So that's one bonus point for bringing COCYTUS back. Like the outs to it are not outs to when it's on the field, although we do have Kaiju, so there's already that to consider. But outs to like preventing it from being summoned, you know, Transmigration Prophecy of all things is seeing play. Another thing I think would be interesting to look at is the decks that could actually summon COCYTUS rather consistently. So decks that don't use their normal summon, that can save it for Alistair very specifically, and decks that run not only water monsters, I'm going to be taking a look at water monster, but also other attributes, because if you're going to be playing the invoked package, you're not just going to be summoning COCYTUS Pass, you know, it's also interesting to be summoning Purgatrio, maybe Caliga sometimes. So like decks that also have some extra deck space to accommodate for all these monsters that you want to be summoning. Starting with ALTERGEIST. You know, Melusik is a water monster. I'm pretty sure the deck runs a variety of attributes. There's in Earth, in Conquery, Dark in Multifaker, we don't have Mikaba or Raijin yet, so these don't really matter. But there's a Fire in Extia. So in theory, you could be playing Invoked Geists, and I don't know if it would be the worst thing out there, because you wouldn't be able to make COCYTUS turn 1 unless you very specifically played 1/1 instead of swooping, which I don't think you should. Opened 1/1 for Melusik, opened Alistair, so that you can go Melusik into Linkuriboh, normal summon Alistair, banish both of them for COCYTUS, and you end up with a Multifaker in hand, Linkuriboh and COCYTUS on the field, and whatever backrow that you drew. Which is kind of a board, but very, very not consistent. Invoked Geist? You know, that would be the worst thing to come to Duel Links. Magikeys. You know, Magikeys have access to a bunch of attributes because they play a bunch of normal monsters, so you could be, what's the card? Advanced Ritual Arting a couple of monsters specifically for Bedos Buster or Gerglasa, and then normal summoning Alistair, invoking away, using Martial to get your second normal for a Magikey monster. That could be an interesting deck. The issue with this would be the extra deck space, because you're already running this, you're running this, you're running, well, these are not in the extra deck, but you're running Dweller, Nightmare. You have to cut corners on like some of your tech cards. Maybe you don't play you know, Cyber Slash Harpy Lady, but maybe you don't even get to play Draco Berserker and Dark Rebellion either. And these are concessions that you could be realistically making for the Invoked package, which I think would consist of exactly COCYTUS and Purgatrio. Maybe 2 Purgatrios, maybe 3 Caligai, still a 4 that could be used for further plays. I don't know. It could be interesting. Actually, we got Toadmaster. I forgot about this card. Yeah, Invoke COCYTUS can't come back as long as Toadmaster is legal. What the fuck? Geist of another water monster? I've never read this card before. TENYI! TENYI is a deck that doesn't often use its normal summon. Could go into invoked lines in the middle of its combo, because afterwards, you know, Shaman locks you out of activating non-TENYI monster effects, and a Shana locks you out of summoning non-worms. But TENYI could be one of these decks that's both interesting to use invoked in, although it hasn't been done yet because the extra deck space is also kind of tight, and also one of these decks that would kind of suffer against invoked because you would be able to banish the Shtanas and the Maporas from your opponent's graveyard, you know, even the Vishudas for Kaliga. That's something that's not often talked about with Invocation, that you get to use monsters in your opponent's graveyard as material, which is pretty decent but not reliable. You can't just go blind with Invoked running only mono attribute and think, oh, if I just play against TENYI, I get to make Purgatrio. You know, that's not how it works. It is a nice bonus though. URSARCTICs, you know, they have a bunch of water monster, but they don't play any other attributes, so they're not gonna play Alistair. NEKROZ, I don't think NEKROZ have anything other than water monsters also. Yeah, that's not interesting. Maybe. Would you really just be playing Invoke just to make a COCYTUS pass and have one more layer of protection that's not exactly Valkyra's? I don't know, because you don't often use the extra deck in NEKROZ, so it's not that unreasonable. It's probably not good. MAGISTUS! Endymion is a water monster. And, you know, Alistair is also in this archetype, so it's canon use. No, I don't know enough about MAGISTUS to gauge whether or not he'd be really good. Is there a way for this archetype to summon Alistair from deck? You can special summon, but Alistair has to be normaled in order to search Invocation, so that doesn't work. I'm sure there are some combo lines that function. I don't know, I don't think it's like, that would change the MAGISTUS game plan, weak as it is. I don't think it'd make MAGISTUS that strong of a deck to compete with. TIMELORDS have a couple of water monsters too. Gabion, which is worthless, and Zaphion, which sees a little bit more play in TIMELORDS lists. Doesn't Invoke kinda work against the spirit of the deck, which is that you need to control normal stuff to summon these things? I guess, like, if you add more Soul on top of Soul, it doesn't really change anything. It's still a really annoying deck to contend with. Crusadia. Crusadia could very easily make use of COCYTUS thanks to Endymion Magi. No, never mind. Because it has an upwards pointing arrow. Never mind what I was gonna say. And you don't want to banish Arbora because it's your protection also. That's a bad idea. One mermaid not banned, the argument for COCYTUS would be a lot more contentious, because any 2-card combo gets you to an invoked line, and it can start with, you know, normal Alistair, summon, I don't know, anything. There's like the Charmer's Partners that special summons if you control Spellcaster. Bunch of cards are special themselves. Make Phoenix, make Knightmare, full Locust combo plus COCYTUS. Ah, that'd be disgusting. I don't want this. I would hate for this future to come to fruition. I think there's like some promise with the Magically Invoked variant that I just made up in my head. But other than that, I don't think we need to be concerned about the impact COCYTUS very specifically would have on the metagame if it were brought back. I think it's definitely a card that would see a lot of experimentation, but not necessarily become the next best deck. Although, by that same token, I think we'd like gatekeep a lot of decks that do not have an easy and clean out to COCYTUS that's more consistent than beating over it with 3000 plus but 4000 minus attack monsters, which is what TENYI is doing, which is what UBEL kind of is doing, so that S-Force would be doing, Trickstars, etc. And last but not least, in my defense of keeping COCYTUS banned, I wanna invite people to consider the game plan of decks that would be using COCYTUS, specifically pure invoked variants, or like already, you know, stall-centric strategies. I mentioned Time Lords earlier. The idea is, since you only need 2 cards pretty much to summon COCYTUS, you can devote your deck to doing pretty much anything else. And if you want to play Protect the Castle, you can very well just put a COCYTUS on the field and then protect it with any amount of backrow that people are already complaining about. So like, not only do you have to contend with these backrow, but you also have to contend with a Towers monster. People really complained about, you know, DINGIRSU back when the Orcus game plan was like, make Ding, bring back KNIGHTMARE, set 3 pass. So now imagine that, but with a monster that's even harder to remove from the... That's a no for me. That's one of my biggest gripes against this card still. I think I started this video very pessimistic about the possibility of COCYTUS coming back, but I think I've kind of changed my tone. I think, you know, I don't want COCYTUS to come back, but I think it could. It would be a more reasonable return than exactly a Trinade, which I think should never come back because this card brings nothing interesting. COCYTUS is a card that I played a lot, a card that I played against a lot, a card that would still potentially see play, although, you know, my metagame analysis is, how do you say it, very poor and very bad. I don't know, maybe they should actually bring it back, you know, just to see what would happen. Maybe it'd be funny, unless you're playing, you know, one of the 80,000 decks that can out COCYTUS, in which case it would not be funny for you, which is why they're keeping it bad, which I think is completely reasonable. But what do you think? Do you think COCYTUS should stay in prison forever? Or are you on the fence like I am? Or are you less on the fence than I am and want this card to fully come back? Let me know in the comments, and yeah, that's going to be it for me. Hope this, you know, rambling was entertaining to y'all, and I'll see you guys and gals and non-binary pals next time.